Hi everyone, welcome back to Watercolor Wednesday. This is Guest Artist Kendra Krebs coming to you with this very fun painted sky southwest theme. So we are going to be using the brand new Watercolor Desert set. And this is one of the brand new summer releases. So last week it was debuted on Watercolor Wednesday, and so we're going to touch on it again this week. And then I'm also just going to use this little flower here. But otherwise, all the items I'm using are coming from the Watercolor Desert set. So let's get started. I have my watercolor paper as well as a circle. So you can grab any circle. This one just worked best for me because it was a nice size for what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to draw a very light circle in here that I'm going to erase. Now this is just going to help me sort of keep everything framed in. A lot of times I use my hands as a reference, but sometimes it's nice to just have a reference on the paper that you can look at and make sure that you don't go past. So first we're going to grab the large cactus from that set. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And we are going to do some stamping off. Now, most of the stamps that I put into this image are going to be stamped off. So I'll show you how I do that. I am going to use the 969 brown Tombow and color this first. Now, I'm going to stamp this off on my work paper here. Pretty good. So you can see that's a pretty dark outline that I've just stamped off. And then I'm going to take 177 and color right over the top. And because I have a pretty firm stamping pressure, I'm actually going to stamp it off again just because I tend to stamp harder. If you are a softer stamper, you probably won't need to do that second time stamping off. But I'm going to now put this into my circle. And then I'm going to switch cactus to this one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to go brown first, and then stamp that off on my practice paper. And I'm going to go right over the top with the 177 green and stamp this off again because I have a heavy hand. If you don't have a heavy hand, you probably don't need to. And then I'm just going to put it right next to it. Okay. So now I am going to take my positioner, and I've got these really little cute cactus I'm going to put on either side of these larger ones, but I'm going to use my positioner because I want to make sure I'm staying within my circle here. And I'm going to take this now and ink it first with 565. And I know, since I've practiced this one before, I'm not going to need these two little arms on the side there. But I'm going to position my positioner to accept the stamp that I want to use. So I'm going to stamp that down on the positioner so that I can now take it and angle it where I want it to go. So about right there. Okay. Now I can pull this away, and I know that my stamp is going to go right into that space. So I'm going to ink this now with the green, since I've already stamped it off once. So I'm going to ink it with the green and stamp it off again because I really want a light outline for this. I don't want a harsh outline. And stamping off really helps that to come out nice and light. So that's pretty much where I wanted it, very, very close to. And then I'm going to do this again on this side, and maybe I want these to be right about there this time. So I can put my positioner down, and now because I'm stamping it again, I need to go back over it with the blue, stamp it off. You're going to get a lot of practice stamping off with this one, but let me tell you, it is so worth it to have that lighter outline. And I'm somebody who likes to practice a lot on the same design to really understand the concepts of the colors and how things look. And the first couple, my stamp was looking very, very similar. I mean, it was looking really dark, and I didn't know why. And then my mom actually came in and she was like, oh, you need to just stamp that off. It's a really simple fix. And I was like, wow, that's true. So once I started stamping it off, I was so much happier with the result. And the cactus then looked different, especially when I changed up the background color. So instead of doing the brown first, I did the blue first on these two to differentiate the color. So, you know, we can always learn something new, even if we've been doing this a long time. Okay, now I have my base cactus in, and I'm going to come in now and add some water to this. So I'm going to take my water and I'm going to push it up against the edge of the cup to allow any air bubbles to escape. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this and just begin to pull out some of the color in the lines. Now you don't need to fill in this entire cactus. You want to leave some highlights so it doesn't look flat. Okay, and then we're also, keep in mind, we're also going to put in some of the sky color. So we do just want to kind of bring out a little bit of that green and brown out, but we are going to put some purples and pinks in there. So we definitely want to leave some highlighted areas for those colors. Okay, so now I'm pulling this color out, and you can see now, because I used a blue background on this cactus, it looks different in color. And that's a really easy way to differentiate different species of plants, because you look outside and there's all kinds of different greens. There's blue greens, there's yellow greens, you know, dark and light. So there's a whole lot of variation with these, and we want to sort of bring that over into our watercolors as well. Okay, so now that I have the base on here, I want to bring in just a little bit more green into this cactus. So I'm going to use number 177, which is this really pretty green color that I stamped as the second color on both of these. And I'm just going to pull just a little bit more green in here. I think it adds another element of depth and definition into these cactus. So I'm just going to kind of focus on the bottom of these ones just to kind of help with the shadow. And notice I'm still leaving the top of these highlighted, because we always need to highlight so things don't look flat. And I generally will leave the tip tops of things highlighted, some on the base and or the trunk. I'll leave some highlights, but for the most part, you're going to see my highlights right at the tip where I leave it kind of white. Okay. All right, now I'm going to add in some more elements down in the bottom here. So I'm going to start with my grass, and I'm just going to use the 969 brown, and I'm just going to add in a few little grassy areas in here, just very lightly. And then I'll add in some rocks before I add my water to those. So the rocks I'm going to stamp off again as well. I just don't want a really dark rocky area. I just want a few little rocks, and you can see I just stamped them off. I didn't need to re-ink every time. So we'll get those in there, and then we'll add our water. So add a little bit of water and just kind of pull this grass out just a little bit. Doesn't need to be pulled out a lot. This is just kind of wild, maybe dried up grass. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of this 969. And then this is a really bright, dark yellow, number 027. 027. It's kind of a greenish yellow. It's kind of dark. And I want to mix just a little bit of these. Now, you can use a lot of colors for this one. This is just going in the bottom of the groundwork to ground in our cactus here. So I'm going to mix just a little bit of this brown with a little bit of that darker greenish brown and just bring in this base in here. I'm going to pull it back here just a touch, just to give us a sense of where these guys are sitting. And I'll just bring that back. Notice I'm staying within my parameter that I set for myself in the very beginning. And it's so nice to have it already done because I know I can just erase out this line at the very end, but I don't have to think about it now. I don't have to think about how far out is my sky gonna go when I already know, well, my sky can't go any further than the lines that I've already drawn in. So it just takes the thinking work out of trying to decide how to frame in your image. Okay, so I'm going to just pull in maybe a little bit more of that color back in here just to give us nice groundwork here. Okay, and I'm going to take the 565. We'll kind of bring this down a little so we're on screen. 565. And this is that nice dark blue, and we're going to use this to put in some of our shadows. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put in a little shadow down in here, and this is going to help tie everything in too, because remember we use this color as the background color of these cactus here. So when you use a color, you want to tie it in again somewhere so that everything kind of works together. I'm gonna come in here, especially this blue. This is so easy to tie in because it's the perfect shadow color. We use this a lot, as I'm sure you know. If you've been following with us for some time, you know we love this blue and we use it a lot. So I'm going to bring in some of that blue like down in here where the arms are of these cactus. So bring this down. And it's going to be on the underneath side of the arms and then right under here where the arms are going to be blocking the sun. Okay, put a little bit on this side. Need some of that blue in here. And everything is going to feel nice and tied in. Okay, so now let's get to the fun part, which is going to be the sky, okay? And really this is all fun. It's all fun. Okay, so first to do the sky, we're going to start with the base color, which is right down here, and it's going to be a lighter blue, and I'm using the number 526. So I'm just going to put 526 here. I'm also going to be using the 636 purple, so 636, as well as the 725 hot pink. Oops, this is number 725. Put the number there. Okay, so we're going to start with this lighter blue, and actually before I even go there, I'm going to wet. This is going to be a wet on wet technique, which I'm sure you've all seen before, but we don't use it very often on our channel, so we thought we might use it today. This would be fun. Okay, so we're going to do a wet on wet, especially with the Southwest, because, you know, down in the South, you know, in the desert areas, they get these gorgeous painted skies, and we get them every so often up here in Oregon, but down there they're just absolutely stunning, and they look like fire in the sky. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. So I thought we would do that for this, and I am just adding water alone all around this cactus right here, and I'm kind of coming down. Now keep in mind, just like what happened there, if you pull the water too close to the brown outline or the brownish green outline, what's going to happen? it's going to all pull out, right? So for me, I don't really mind a little bit of that. It's no big deal. But if you want to keep your sky really pure in color, definitely kind of be mindful that that can happen if you're not careful. So now I'm going to take some of this blue and I'm just going to dab it in, and you can see how it wants to travel. So this is going to disperse out from the origin, which is going to be where I first put it down. I'm going to put some into the center here and kind of bring this down. And notice I'm dabbing. I'm just dabbing in that color, allowing it to disperse pretty much on its own, but I'm helping it out just a little bit, kind of direct it where I want it to go, because I do want it to get somewhat close to the cactus, but not too close to where I'm going to pull out more of that brown green from the edges. So I'm coming down here, just kind of adding this blue, adding a little bit in here and down into this area between the cactus. Okay. And then I'm going to take and make sure this is nice and wet still. If you get it too wet, even on watercolor paper, you can still warp your paper. So if you know you use a whole lot of water, definitely tape this down. If you tape it down like onto your work surface, it's not going to warp like it would how I have it now, which is just kind of free moving. So if you think I'm going to use a whole lot of water, you want to tape it down just to ensure that you're not going to get that warping going on. Okay, I'm going to take that 725 hot pink and just drop it right into the top. Notice I'm still kind of dabbing. I'm not doing side to side strokes or straight strokes. I'm just dabbing in this color until I'm happy with where it is. And see this frame? It's helping me so much decide how far out to go. And that was one thing I really had to work on when I started watercoloring is kind of knowing where to stop the frame or where to stop the image, because we know there's, you know, more cacti and more, you know, maybe there's a mountain over here. We know that this isn't the only thing that, you know, is out here, but this is our viewpoint. So it's like we're looking through a telescope, and that's what we're seeing. So now I'm going to add just a little bit more. And if you let it dry a little bit, you're going to get some brighter colors, some brighter deposits. And every single sky you do is going to be a little bit different, which is really exciting. I love that. I love seeing how these turn out every time. They're a little bit different. They're always unique. And that's how the painted skies are. They're always unique. You know, every time they come out, it's a little bit different than the time before. I'm going to bring some more of that blue in here. Just kind of let that sit. Okay, so now while this is drying, I'm going to come in and just put some of that color into the cacti here. And I'm going to start with my purple, and I'm just going to lightly, just very lightly, add some of this purple onto this cactus, just as a reflection of the sky. Put a little bit here. And generally I kind of stay where the highlight is, because that's what's going to be, what the sky is going to be shining on is the highlight. Okay, and if you feel like it's a little harsh, just take a little bit of water and brush it out just a touch. Now I'll take some of that purple and I'll just lightly add it into these taller cacti. Right up in here, and just a little bit goes a really long way. You don't have to overdo this, just a little bit. And again, every time I do this, it turns out differently, and that's always fun to see. Okay. And then I'll put just a little bit of pink in there too. I'm going to do less pink than I did purple because the pink is really intense. And I don't want it to overtake my cacti. Just a little bit of the pink where the purple is. And I'm not going to add any pink to these out here because I'm going to add pink blooms and that will tie it in. Okay. So now this is probably pretty dry at this point. Well, not quite. So I'm going to take my little dried twigs and I'm going to put these into my project down in here while the sky is drying. I don't want to put any flowers up in here until I know with certainty that my sky is dry. Because if I do that, then what's going to happen? The color is going to distribute all throughout the sky again. And then you're going to have pink down here, then blue, then purple, then pink, which is not the worst thing ever, but it does, you can tell that that was meant to be a flower and the background was not dry. So I'm going to take my twigs and once again, I'm going to stamp that off because I don't want a heavy line. I just want it to be really soft. See how soft that is? Kind of working through this area. And maybe I only want to use a little bit of this. I don't need to use the whole thing. But every time I re-ink, I am going to, I'm going to scoot that down. I am going to stamp off because it's just, for me, it's just a little too heavy not stamping it off. Stamp that off and we'll put one in over here. And do you see just how dainty that is when you put these in this detail? Because we're taking out detail from the cactus, right? And so we're adding some detail back in with these really pretty, like spindly twigs down there. Okay, so now this is dry enough. Yeah, dry enough that I can now put in some of my flowers. So I'm using that little polka dot flower I showed you from the mini flower set. And I'm just going to stamp in some of these cute little dots. Now this little stamp, you can substitute this stamp for a lot of the little stamps. You just need a little one to stamp at the top of these. But it certainly does not need to be this dotted one. Okay. And we'll just put one more up in here. Okay, so now that I have my little flowers in, I'm going to take my brush and we're going to dab these just a touch to pull out the color and connect them up to its little cactus mama. Just like that. And do you see how these flowers now tie into the sky? And it looks much more cohesive when you can tie, like we said with the shadows, when you can tie the colors back in into the rest of the image. All right, so now we're going to erase our line. So I just have a very simple eraser somewhere around here. And once again, you want to make sure all of your elements are dry before you come in and try to erase. If you don't, I'm so sorry, but you will risk ripping your paper and all of your beautiful work. So you want to make sure that line is very light when you first do this. Otherwise, you will see a residual pencil line. So you want to make sure you do it very, very lightly. And then it's really easy to erase at the end. Okay, so now I'm going to just put a couple more details in here, and I'm going to use the green detail tip of number 177 and just put a few little dots in here. These are really cute details, kind of little notches in these cacti. All right, and then I'm going to take my detail tip of the blue and just, this is 565, and just put some of those little dots back in to the little cactus down in here. Okay, and I'm going to take my twin tone brown and just add a little bit of color into my rock. Now this is so small that it's nice to just kind of color it in with your little detail tip, and we have these twin tone markers that you can get on artimpressions.com. We'll link all these supplies below. But I'm going to put a couple little, like maybe sand bits down in here, and then of course I will sign my work. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you try it out, let us know. We would absolutely love to see it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Make sure you subscribe if you liked it. Check out Bonnie Krebs Bible Journaling and Art Impressions on Instagram, and we will see you next week. Bye!